This offseason could be a very busy one for the New York Rangers as they look to make some moves, more than likely with the intention on trying to make this team quite a bit better than what it was last season. I think this team, although some fans kind of want to see a possible rebuild slash, full-on kind of retool, to me, whether or not us fans kind of want to see that happen or not, it's probably just not going to happen. I think this team, with the moves that they kind of made last season there, with some of the trades, the extensions handed out there, the hiring so far this offseason of a guy like a Mike Sullivan to be the next head coach, to me, all those moves kind of scream this team is looking to compete in the 2025-26 season. So in today's video, we're going to take a look at a possible trade that could be made by the New York Rangers with the hopes of kind of trading this certain player out, with obviously the idea of making this team quite a bit better. So that's what we're going to kind of take a look at in today's video. And of course, the player we're talking about is Chris Kreider. Should the Rangers trade away Chris Kreider? That's what we're going to kind of talk about in today's video. And I think it's a pretty interesting situation when you consider all the factors here with Kreider's contract, as he still has 2 more years left with a $6.5 million cap hit. Then, of course, you've also got the fact that, he is getting up there in age a bit now. He suffered some kind of back issues last season there, of course, which seemingly quite hindered his performance overall. I mean, I think if you kind of watch Krider play, he obviously wasn't quite near his kind of best self, you could say. So I'd imagine he definitely was dealing with some pretty serious stuff last season there. Obviously, going forward with him aging now, and he's not getting any younger, of course. He has lots of kind of miles on those tires already. There is a big question kind of how well he's going to be, going forward and kind of health-wise. So I think that obviously has a big effect on kind of this whole situation here, and of course, what the actual value they could possibly get back could potentially be, because a team knowing that there is an aging kind of forward here who suffered some pretty serious stuff last season there and had his play quite, affected by those injuries, by those back issues, to me, obviously isn't maybe going to be looking to give up as much as originally they might have if Krider wasn't dealing with these injuries. So there's that, of course. He also, of course, had that down year, didn't put up the best numbers overall, didn't have too many assists, especially to start the season there for quite some time. Then obviously ends the season with like 22 goals there, which isn't a terrible mark, but obviously isn't a great one and isn't quite where you expect Chris Kreider to kind of be at. So it definitely was a very disappointing overall season for Krider there and for the Rangers team as well, right? It wasn't just Krider, of course, that had a bit of a down season, but Krider was definitely one of those players who was one of the reasons on kind of why this team, didn't have a good season overall, and, were definitely one of the players who did take, like I said, one of those steps back. So in the future going forward, it's really kind of tough to say. I have no idea, right? I'm not a doctor. I don't see these medical reports. I'm not with Krider, so I have no idea truly how bad these injuries are, with all the back issues especially, and obviously, back issues and back kind of stuff like that, those can definitely be lingering and can hang on for a very, very long time or forever pretty much. So it obviously is a very tough kind of situation here, right? I'm not going to dive too much into the medical side of things there because really and truly it's not fair for me to comment on too much because I don't exactly know what we don't know. So that's kind of a tough part of things here. But just in general, I think if the Rangers have the opportunity to trade away Krider and they don't have to retain any money at all, or maybe it is only a little bit, then it definitely might be worth it because, it is a 2-year deal left, of course, with $6.5 million per season. So that is a decent chunk of change there, of course. It is quite pricey for a guy who may miss quite a bit of time next season due to injuries, right? It's possible with an aging forward. So that's kind of the part where it's not going to be easy to deal away a guy like Krider there and get a bunch back for him. You might have to retain, 1.5 mil there, maybe 2 mil, maybe $1 million bucks, maybe 1.25. I don't exactly know, but a team might want you to retain some money, and then you can actually get some actual decent value back. I have no idea. Maybe there's a team out there that's willing to take on that entire contract and give up just a little bit there, of course, not too much. But I would imagine if the Rangers do end up having to retain some money, then they're actually going to be able to get back an actual pretty solid asset. I don't think it's going to be anything too crazy they're going to be getting back in return. But especially if they are retaining some money on him, if it's like, 1.5, 2 mil or something like that, even around there, which I'm not saying I want to see happen. But if that means they're able to get off that contract and get something actual pretty good back, then depending on what that is, it definitely could be worth it. And I'm not saying I'm completely kind of out on Krider there. I still think he's obviously a very fine player and, definitely can still be a 30-plus goal scorer at this kind of NHL level, I think, and still be, a decent kind of two-way forward at moments, of course, as well, because he is, for the most part there, a decent, at least defensive winger compared to the average kind of winger, you could say. But I just am kind of a little scared with those injuries, and that is kind of, I would say, the main reason on why I really do kind of want to see Kreider traded away. I mean, I think at the end of the day, if he does stick around and he can stay healthy with this team, I think he can be a quality player for the Rangers. But that's kind of the main thing there. I don't know how healthy he's going to be going forward. He is a bigger body, of course. He is a guy who we already know has some pretty somewhat serious kind of injuries already, right? With the back that, just in general with back problems in life, not talking about just sports, right? Lots of people have back problems that last for a very, very long time. And, the back and the neck and the head, those are some things that can definitely kind of be there lingering long term, right? So I think you got to be careful with that long term as well, right? It's not just about his hockey career, but it's just kind of a problem there that definitely could come up more and more as he does continue to age and go along there. So I think that's one reason kind of definitely why I would want to see Krider traded away. Of course, I don't want to see it just be like a full-on straight-up cap dump where the team is like retaining $1 million in the contract or something like that, or they're taking back a bad contract, just get off that deal. To me, that's not quite worth it. But if you can get something decent back there, even if you have to retain $1.5 million or $2 million, you can get back like a quality player or some other good assets, whatever it is, maybe it is worth it. And heading into the future, I definitely want to see this Rangers team do a better job at trying to develop some of their young players. And of course, with trading away a guy like Chris Kreider, hypothetically, you're now having the opportunity to open up an extra spot in that top 9, because if you're going into next season there with a healthy Kreider, let's say, he's going to have a spot in that top 9, right? He's not going to be a fourth-line forward if he is, healthy and is capable of playing. So in this scenario, let's say he's in that top 9. Well, if you trade him away, you're opening up that spot in that top 9 now, which could be like a third-line role possibly, or even in the top 6 still. You never know what Mike Sullivan's plan would be. But now in this scenario, you're opening up that spot for one of those guys, potentially like a Brennan Hoffman or a Brett Berard or a Gabe Perreault, who I think him maybe starting the AHL might be what's best for his development. We'll have to wait and see what Mike Sullivan and the rest decide to do, of course. But I'm kind of talking here about you trade away Kreider and you're giving more of an opportunity to one of these young guys who you definitely hope can end up taking, a big step with this Rangers team and can end up becoming a big part of this franchise going forward. Because like I said, this team has to do a better job at developing some of these young players. And, one of the better ways seemingly to do it, I would guess, is obviously giving some opportunities to some of these talented guys at the NHL level, right? We've seen guys like Berard and Hoffman, really those two guys especially, they've had some pretty solid success and have done a lot of good things in the AHL. Now it definitely seems like it's time to kind of get that chance and get that full run at the NHL level. Hopefully we see that with those two guys to begin next season there, and hopefully one of them can end up having a big season for this team and end up being a massive, impactful player in the 2025-26 season as the Rangers look to bounce back. Anyways, that's going to do it for today's video. If you have enjoyed, definitely don't forget to click that like and subscribe button for daily New York Rangers content. And of course, don't forget to comment down below your thoughts either on the possibility of trading Chris Kreider. Do you want to see it happen? Do you think it makes sense for this team? Would you be willing to trade him away with some kind of salary retained? Do you want to see it be kind of no salary retained? What do you think the value we could get back for him could possibly be? And of course, thanks for watching. I'll catch you next one, and bye.